Mr. Bainey, and we're going to take a look at, hey, what's up, Math 1? We're going to take, hello, this is Mr. Bainey. Here is lesson 20.4, side triangle congruence. The last two lessons were triangle congruence theorems, and this is our third one, which isn't going to take a whole lot to, especially if you feel very comfortable with the last two lessons. This one's not going to be that much of a stretch. It just gives us a new way of proving two triangles are congruent. So side, simple enough. There's only three sides in a triangle, right? So it's not like you have to really look for them very hard. It's just, are all three pairs of sides congruent? That's it. On the very next page is the statement of side triangle congruence, and same exact conclusion, right? If the three pairs of sides are congruent, then the triangles are congruent, and that leads us to being able to use CP/CTC. Okay, and just to remind you that the CP/CTC is from lesson 20.1, which states that all the corresponding parts from congruent triangles are congruent. And there are 6 parts. There would be 6 corresponding parts between the two triangles. On the bottom of page 1029, let's look at the your turn. We want to be able to show or prove or explain whether these triangles are congruent. The direction does say to prove the triangles are congruent or to explain why they are not congruent. I'm not really looking for you to write a proof in the way that we write our statements and our reasons, but this will be good practice if you include all the details that you need. So in number 5, right, we have PM and SQ are congruent. What else do we have? We have PN and RS are congruent. Whoops, I only used one mark there. I made a mistake. And then MN and RQ are not congruent to each other. So it's that side and that side. We only have 2 pairs of parts. Only 2 pairs is not enough. Therefore, these are not congruent. You know, there will be some pictures where actually they just don't give you enough information. Does that actually mean that they're not congruent? I mean, sometimes they can't be congruent, like it's impossible. Like this case, it's impossible for these 2 sides to be congruent, or not sides, but these 2 triangles, because we have MN and RQ, they're different lengths. So there's no way that these 2 triangles can be congruent. But let's say they left this out. If the 28 wasn't there and the 32 wasn't there, you don't have to say not congruent. You could mention that they could be, or they're not necessarily congruent. We just don't have enough information, right? So there's that possibility. I know that there is something in the assignment that does end up with that result. So, you know, try to distinguish those two. It's okay if you say it's not congruent if it could be, because that could mean that we just don't have enough information. On number 6, if you want to give it a try, go and pause it, but include all the details. Here we go. We have KG is congruent to GL. The ones with the 2 marks, right, just look at those. We have KJ is congruent to JL. That's also given to us. That's all that's given. Remember, that doesn't mean that's all we know has to be congruent. GJ has to be congruent to GJ because of reflexive property right? The first two are given. They're already on the picture for us. And that's all three sides. That's all three pairs of sides that are congruent. So let's just write our triangle congruent statement, and that is KJ, KGJ is congruent to triangle LGJ, and that's by SSS congruence. Okay, so this is pretty much, I didn't number them or anything, but this is a proof. I have my statements, I have my reasons pretty much next to all of them, and that would be it. And just slap on those numbers, and it's an actual 2-column proof that we can have written. And the last example we're going to look at is here at the bottom of page 1030. And we have here two triangles. Craig made a mobile using these shapes. For what value of x and y can you use a triangle congruence theorem to show the triangles are congruent? Which triangle congruence theorem can you use? So in order for us to get the values of x and y, we're just going to assume they're congruent, right? Because we want them to be congruent. And if x is, it looks like GH, it's this side right here, we need to look at what does that actually correspond to in the other triangle, and it's going to match up with UV right there. So that's 12 centimeters. So 8x minus 12 centimeters from one triangle has to be equal to 12 centimeters from the other triangle, and that helps us set up our equation. If the angle F is 60 degrees, then angle H has to be 30. I did that mentally before I figured out these sides actually were corresponding. I apologize. But if we have a 90 degree and a 60 degree, that adds up to 150, right? And then all three have to add up to 180, which means that the last angle has to be 30 degrees. That's sort of how I figured it out. So we know that this angle at 30 degrees is congruent to this other angle at 30 degrees. So we actually have our three parts. If the value of x, I'm going to add 12 to both sides. If the value of x is 3, that's what's going to make that 12 centimeters, right? If we plug 3 back into this up here, into x, we get 12, because that's 8 times 3 minus 12. So if angle G is 90 degrees, this is 12 centimeters, this is 30 degrees. All right, this is 90 degrees at angle U, this is 12 centimeters, this is 30 degrees. So we could actually say that triangles are congruent. I'm going to write down the statement actually here. Triangle FGH is congruent to triangle, let me make sure I get this right, TUV. And we can actually prove that's congruent by angle side angle. I still haven't figured out what y is, but in order for the two triangles to be congruent, angle T does correspond to angle F, right? Since this has to be 30 here at H, 30 at V, the other two angles, F and T, have to be 60. So my equation is 7y plus 4, that has to be 60 degrees. If I subtract 4 from both sides, I get 56, which means y has to be 8. Okay, so y is 8, x is 3. The triangles are congruent by ASA. Okay, that's it for this lesson. So get in the habit of writing all those details down. That's going to help you tremendously for the proofs. Include the reasons, and hope this helped out a lot. Have a good day. Thank you.